This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Trial Lawyers Association of BC. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. My new book about addictions, All the Way Home, Building Recovery That Works. Donovan Tildesley is a Canadian Paralympic athlete. He's won medals in Athens, Beijing, and Sydney. Went most recently, of course, to London. And he won those medals swimming. What makes this all the more remarkable is that he has been blind since birth, and he is an amazing young fellow, and I'm proud to say he's a good friend. We've become great buddies over recent years doing some work together, and he's here with us in the studio. Hey, Donovan, great to see you as always, buddy.
Good to see you, David.
Here's a handshake.
And no, you're also, I count you as one of my mentors, because when we met a few years ago through a mutual contact, I was developing a speaking business, which we can chat about later, and you really catapulted me from just being an all-right speaker into a truly authentic person, and I'll be forever indebted to you for that.
Wow, don't get me in tears when I have to start this conversation. Thank you. That's very kind of you. So look, let's let people in on this. Your biggest fame has come from these amazing feats of winning these medals at Paralympic Games all over the world. But take us back. I've heard some of these stories, but many people haven't. Blind at birth, wonderful supportive family, loving family, but your dad is a bit of a joker and he just threw you in the lake? Or you just made that up? In a number of words, yeah. Well, I was a young kid, about 3 years old, and my dad decided, well, heck, I'm going to teach my blind son how to swim. So we happened to be in the Shuswaps at the time, and he has this rowboat, and he takes me into the middle of the lake and picks me up and proceeds to chuck me into the water. I never know if you've made this up. Well, I've heard this story before, but are you really? Okay, so then what happens? So then you beat off 12 sharks.
Well, it was very difficult because, I had to get out of the bag first.
Ah, yes, there's that. Okay. Yeah. So when did swimming go from just being something that was fun to being, I think I can beat people in a race?
I think there were a couple of different times that I realized that. I started swimming from a very young age, as most kids would, in water baby classes, bobbing up and down to nursery rhymes, and my dad finally got sick of those, and so would take me to the pool. And I was actually afraid of the water as a very young kid. And
sure.
My dad had to bribe me to jump in the water. He said,
what?
Various things. Usually it was because I love sushi. And maybe this is a West Coast thing, because I have friends in other parts of Canada who can't stand it, but I was eating sushi from a very young age. And so he'd say, if you jump into the pool, solo jump 5 times, I'll take you out for sushi dinner. And I've never been one to resist a good meal. So no. my better sense got the better of me. I jumped into the pool, and pretty soon I was taking swimming lessons, and I graduated beyond those. And Dad and I would go to the pool a couple of times a week when I was 8 years old, and he himself used to be an ex-swimmer, and said to me one day, well, let's have a race from one side of the pool to the other.
Oh.
Yeah. No, he wanted to race me, and I thought, well, seems like a good idea to me. I knew that there was a certain trust factor. I knew, well, at the time, he was still faster than me, so he would likely win the race.
Yes.
He had to be there to protect my head, of course, at the end of the wall. But what I really got into the spirit of was just that good old-fashioned competition, that one week I could swim the length in 25 seconds, and then the next week it would be 23, and it kept going down and down, and especially when I discovered the Speedo.
The Speedo?
The Speedo. when
Does that change everything? Yeah.
When you graduate from
Yeah.
board shorts, which
Yeah.
sometimes weigh you down and sometimes come off when
yeah.
you push off the wall too aggressively,
Yeah.
into this tight spandexy suit, you
Yeah.
lose about 5 seconds of time. So I thought, man, I'm a superstar. I can swim 50 meters under a minute. This is amazing. And at the same time, the coach of our local club was noticing this father-son bonding on deck, and looked all right to him. There weren't all that many tears, and not too much shouting, as sometimes you see between
Sure.
dads trying to coach their kids. And he said, "Well, how does Donovan like to? Would he like to join our swim team?" And I seemed like a great idea to me. To pursue a sport that I was learning to love and meet some other kids along the way. So I ended up joining the swim team around almost 9 years old, and as well worked with some coaches one-on-one, just because of the nature of blind swimming. I couldn't just watch the coach. Like, say if you've got a coach with 5 or 10 kids and he says, do a backstroke, and this is how I do the backstroke. What?
Yeah.
I had no idea how, and I'd be like down there.
What's he talking about? Yeah.
And so I'd have these, a coach who would get in the water with me a couple times a week and actually physically show me, okay, here's how you put your hands in for the front crawl. Here's where you put your head for the turn. And that's how I learned very much hand over hand.
What are your events? The events in which you've won medals?
I won medals in, let's see, my first medal, my bronze in Sydney was the 200 individual medley.
Yes.
And then I won 2 silvers in Athens in the 400 freestyle, and 200 individual medley again, and a bronze in the 100 freestyle. And 4 years later in Beijing, was able to come away with a bronze in the 400 freestyle. So five in total, essentially.
Wow.
Over 3 events.
Wow, amazing. For those of us who are sighted, I know we can't quite understand this, but maybe you could explain to people how you manage even to stay in the lane.
Well, it's fairly simple, David, with the lane, because they're, and you're a swimmer yourself, you know how these things work. They're fairly significant plastic ropes that hem you in. So,
But there's more, because you have someone, as you were learning this, you have someone sort of not quite poking you, but tapping you with a big sort of lance with foam on it or something. What's all that about?
Thankfully, well, sometimes they use the other end if I was goofing off or misbehaving. I know. For instance, my girlfriend will do that from time to time. It's usually after we've had a fight, because that time I offered to drive and she was insistent that I didn't, and kind of blew out of proportion there. So.
Yes, okay.
Anyway, it's a plastic stick with a foam Q-tip on the end called a tapper,
Yeah.
and they reach it out and they whack me on the top of the head.
Yeah.
And so that's when I know, okay, here's the wall, time to do a flip turn, or time to finish the race, and I just reach out my hand for the end of the race, touch the wall, touch the pad at the end, which electronically records the time. So, 9 times out of 10 they make the tap, but there's always that odd.
Do you have any sense of connection to these startling guys? What's this kid's name who just won 80 zillion gold medals in swimming?
Oh, not Michael Phelps.
Yeah,
Lochte, Ryan Lochte?
Well, both of them.
Both of them,
Both
okay.
of them. I mean, do you have a sense, because you're a medal winner yourself at Paralympic Games, do you feel like you're part of that same family in a way?
Well, I don't know. I think maybe the day that I share a bong with Michael Phelps, I might feel interconnected with him. But it's very much a similar. They train and prepare somewhat differently, but I think that we all share the same passion. Everybody does what they need to do to get in the game. I know Michael Phelps, before a race, will completely block everything out, and he's in his long parka and earphones and has it completely rehearsed down to a science, and is so focused and gets up and races and wins all these medals. I don't necessarily prepare that way. But
you do a lot of preparation.
I do a lot of preparation. You have to. Do I train as many hours, or have I as Michael Phelps? I'm not sure about that. But then again, I haven't won 7 medals.
Yeah,
but I think we share a common experience of, if there's such a thing as an archetypal Olympic experience, being the best in the world or among the best in the world, and competing for your country and standing on a podium and hearing an anthem being performed in your honor and your country's honor. And it's a very different journey for everybody. I think Michael Phelps, the biggest challenge with him is he's put so much of his effort into swimming that it's going to be a hard transition to go from being an athlete to the real world.
But you're making the same transition
I'm making
right
the
now.
same transition, and it's all about values. I decided after my second games in Athens, I had been put under a ton of pressure leading into it, and I don't think it was anybody's fault. It was just what I'd won multiple gold medals at a world championship before. And everybody thought going into Athens I was a gold medal winner hopeful. And so that meant, you know, the training had to escalate in the pool. They threw in some extra gym workouts, you know, getting my body in shape. But what they forgot about, and again, nobody's fault, they forgot about the holistic aspect. So I was at an age leading into that games, 19 years old, in my second year of university, and wanting to get out and meet more people and socialize. And then anytime I'd you know, be out or come back from the bar or spending time with people, I'd always have this thrown at me, well, you got to get ready for the games, you can't be doing this, you know, you got Athens coming. So it just felt like a pressure cooker just building up all the way to the game. So even before it had started, I was wanting it to be over and done with. I was sick and tired of the pressure. I felt frustrated and angry and beleaguered by everything that was going on. And yeah, I performed great at the games. I didn't win any golds, you know, 2 silvers and a bronze, nothing to sneeze at. But afterwards, I stepped away and I thought, you know, if I'm going to continue to do this, because I still do love the sport of swimming, I've got to set some of my own terms for this. And I'm going to still be a swimmer and train, but I'm going to allow for some more balance in my life. So. And my dad, thankfully, who's coached me for many years, he was on side with that. I think that's the benefit of having somebody so close to you as a coach. And he agreed and said, okay, well, we'll keep training and you do what you need to do. And so I, you know, started to develop those friendships at university. I joined a fraternity, which Sigma Chi, which many people raised eyebrows at. You know, what the heck are you doing that for?
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, it taught me a ton about myself and how to relate to other people and got me out there socially. So I was going out and meeting more people and maybe not focusing the same energies on swimming. But you know what? The following year came the Commonwealth Games, and I was swimming faster than I had ever swum before.
Really?
So, yeah, it just goes to show.
You're just confident, relaxed.
Confident, relaxed. It became my journey. It became about me, and it wasn't about, you know, making this guy Donovan into a machine. It was, okay, he's a swimmer and that's a big part of his life, but he's also a person, and first and foremost he's a person. And being able to embrace that holistically reinvigorated my passion for swimming, allowed me to move forward in my own life, and kept me in a sport, you know, gosh, 8-9 years longer than I probably would have done. I could have hung it up after my second Paralympic Games.
Donovan, we just have a minute before our break.
Yeah.
Just tell us about being a flag bearer.
Oh my gosh. When they announced it in 2008 at a ceremony in Beijing, this shockwave went through my body and I was almost in tears and almost speechless, which is pretty rare for me. And then 2 days later, I'm walking into the bird's nest. I've got the flag at my left hip and a lanyard, my cane in my right hand, and my dad behind me, trying to direct me madly, making me keep the flag in the air. And I thought to myself, you know, if somebody had told me all those years earlier when I first learned about the Paralympics that I would now be carrying a flag for Canada, I would have thought they were crazy. It just goes to show what happens when you have a dream and when you make that dream into reality, what can happen.
Oh, man, you're killing me. Okay, we're going to take a little break. You're so great, Donovan. You're such a good pal. DavidBerner.com is the site to go to.
Oh, perfect.
We're going to give an opportunity for those people who support this program to say hello. Program being brought to you here on Shaw Community Television Cable 4. Back in a minute. This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Trial Lawyers Association of BC. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. My new book, All the Way Home, Building Recovery That Works. Canadian Paralympic champ Donovan Tildesley is our guest. Donovan has won medals in Beijing, Athens, and Sydney. Went recently to the London Paralympic Games, and you weren't really expecting to medal, but you just went really to be part of the group one more time, to experience it one more time. Before we leave the Olympics behind, give us a few minutes about this strange experience of getting on planes and going to all these places on Earth. It must be such a mad experience.
It can be,
Yeah.
and people always talk about how great traveling is, and I said this.
And demanding.
And very demanding,
Yeah.
and I've gotten to the point where I don't mind a plane ride, but it's tiring. It's not as exciting as it used to be. It's more fun just getting there.
Yeah.
And just you have to psych yourself up for it somewhat. A friend of mine years ago, I was talking, because everybody likes to visit different places. Like of course you love Italy,
Yeah.
and I've been to Australia before, and I was thinking to myself, anytime I get off a plane, you've got the same things. You've got cars moving back and forth, you've got sidewalks, you've got sun, you've got rain. How do I know that the plane's not just flying around in circles, landing in Vancouver, and everybody
right.
around me is speaking in a different accent?
That's right. They are. It's all a big.
I
put-on,
knew it was.
Donovan.
It's just like the Truman Show.
Okay, take a shot. I hope you don't insult 4 countries, but which Olympics was the most interesting, aside from what you did in the pool? Which city, which experience, where was the food the best, and so on?
Probably between Sydney and London. Sydney being my first, and it was so new and so invigorating and exciting, and I just love Australian people and their
Yes.
sense of humor. Like, hey, get out, mate, what are you talking about? Yeah. they call a spade a spade. They're like me. They're not afraid to be politically incorrect.
Yeah.
And so I just love that culture. And
they're
London,
warm and friendly.
They're incredibly warm. They're the nicest
yeah.
people you can. And going to a swim meet in Australia is like going to a hockey game here. That's how jazzed up they get about sport.
Yeah.
And in London, though, I knew that I probably wouldn't medal, but I had the strangest feeling when I walked into that village and they put the accreditation, which is our security pass, around my neck.
Yeah.
And I felt a feeling of pure joy, and like I was coming back to do something that I was so used to, and almost coming home in a sense. And I really in London got a sense of how fun and how energetic the games are, and I think it also helps it to be in an English-speaking country. There's no barriers, language barriers. London really went all out with the degree of food.
Yes.
I still remember in Sydney having to walk across the street and plug in a phone line to go onto the internet. London,
Yeah.
it was right in my room. Didn't even have to leave my accommodations to check my Twitter. Just everything was so seamless. Almost made things too easy. And even though I didn't medal, London for sure was one of my all-time best experiences.
You didn't compete in the Winter Olympics,
No.
but you might be getting close, because we should tell people what you do for laughs, what you do for relaxation, which is really unbelievable.
Well, therapy, actually, David.
Yeah,
And you should know,
therapy,
it's therapy. It's when I'm not in the pool, I like to go up to Whistler or Blackcomb on the weekends
Yes.
and ski.
But
And
you don't go to the bunny run.
No.
You go to, what's this thing called?
Well, there's Spanky's Ladder.
I thought there was another
well, there's
one.
the Sudan Couloir, the
Sudan
Couloir
Couloir,
Extreme.
yeah.
And I remember years ago skiing on, a said bunny run and hearing explosions up in the background and asking my guide where they were blasting, because I knew that's how they got rid of avalanches. And he said, well, it's probably up on the Sudan.
Yeah.
And I asked him what it was, and he proceeded to tell me about this 57-degree angle run that you have to jump a cornice to get into, and if you fall, you probably will slide all the way to the bottom. As a 10-year-old kid, that really intrigued me.
Yeah.
And I insisted that we ski the Sudan. They're like, no way, we're not doing that. You're falling on the blue runs. We're not taking you down there. And just kind of kept that in the back of my mind. And I remember a few years later, I was 15, and had this guide, Jody, who had never skied with me before. And I told her about the Sudan. Yeah. And she said, well, let's give it a try. And so we go up to the top and hop in, and I make it to the bottom without falling or losing a ski or breaking a limb.
Now, you must explain, because people like me I've heard some of this before, but people are baffled. We don't get it. How are you able to do this? What's the mechanics? What are the mechanics of it? Your guide is talking to you?
Yeah,
you're wearing an earphone?
He's got a microphone. He skis behind me, and I have an earphone.
Yes.
And he basically says left, right, left, right. Sometimes when it's a wide open run, they don't even call turns. They just let me go, because I can pretty much feel my way down the course.
Yes.
You know, and they just call me to get me around trees. One of my guides, who's one of the cockiest SOBs, I say this lovingly, James, one of the cockiest SOBs out there, he goes as far as saying that guiding skiing is almost like playing a video game.
Oh, really?
Yes. So you just basically have this character, and you've got to direct him around all these obstacles: trees, people, rocks, cliffs.
Yeah.
And he's been very lucky so far that we haven't had any collisions. But
he's been very lucky.
He's been very lucky. But there's a great program up in Whistler, the Whistler Adaptive Sports Program, who I've been with for many years. And I tell them I'm coming up, and they know what sort of guides I like. And I've built some great rapport with a bunch of the folks there. And they do a ton, not just for guys like me, but for people in sit skis and wheelchairs, and for cognitive disabilities, and for summer sports. So,
now, Donovan, we should tell people you've got a university degree.
I do.
And you've lived with your family, who are loving, supportive people. And you also work. You have a full-time job.
I do.
We should just tell people what you do, because it's kind of interesting.
I'm a general insurance broker at Buntain Insurance Agencies here in town.
Yeah.
We've actually just expanded, opened up an office or took over a office on Oak and 25th. But years ago, I was working for Royal Bank as a part of their Olympians program, which is kind of an athlete ambassador program through the bank.
Yeah.
They were going to put me in the Visa call center when my year-long contract was done. My neighbor, Gord Buntain, who's run this agency essentially for the last 30, 40 years, he's doing my parents' insurance, and he says, no way, Donovan doesn't want to do this. He's got to come and work for me in insurance and work on our travel insurance portfolio, and let's see where this goes. And up until that time, well, I don't know, honestly, of any other blind general insurance brokers in Canada. So
you do everything on the phone.
On the phone and on the
and on the computer.
I have a speaking computer with a program called JAWS that reads everything off the screen to me, and I've got a braille display. And
whenever I phone you, you always say, "Hi, David." Yeah, you always say, "Hi, David." So is your cell phone saying that's David?
My cell phone, yeah. I don't usually.
What is it doing?
My cell phone basically speaks with it. It's got a software program on it, and it reads the screen and it verbalizes it, and so it'll say David Berner, blah blah blah, and gives your number. So I know exactly who you are. But it's been a great road at Buntain, and I've really come to love sales over the past 4.5 years. And kind of my target market are people with higher end homes, unique homes, heritage homes, and I try to bundle different coverages together. And I think there's a wow factor, you know, David, because you know, people look at insurance, hum, ho hum. But, you know, imagine going to the office and you're dealing with a guy who's blind selling you insurance. And I know people don't give me the business out of sympathy. At least I hope. I
don't think so. I think they do it because you give them the right deal.
I give them the right deal, and I think people look at it and say, well, if this guy can do that, I think we'll give him a chance. And I think it's a real testament to Gord and the rest of the company, because it was not easy. We still run into challenges. You know, when you train for a new job, it's more about teaching the person, okay, here's how to upload this, and here's how to turn on the computer. For me, it was, okay, can Donovan do this? Will this work with the software? And there was a lot of things that didn't work.
Let's talk about some new challenges apart from work. We just have about 2-3 minutes left. After all of these years of living with your family, you're a strong, independent young man. You bought a condo.
I did.
And you're gonna take on life on your own.
I am. Well, it's still a hole in the ground. It's still yet to be built, but
it'll be ready.
It'll be ready by next year.
Okay.
And I'm ready for this. The time is right, and I've known this for a while. It just needed to be the right fit. And my realtor, Lisa Chandler, sold me on this. I wasn't keen on waiting, but she said this will be a perfect deal for you. I'd also always said that, you know, once I move out on my own, I'm going to be a bit more marketable. And sure enough, after I signed, or marketable to this opposite sex, sure enough, I signed the lease, signed the contract, and a month later, I'm dating a beautiful girl. So it just goes to show how life throws these curveballs.
And she saw you doing stand-up comedy.
She did. It turns out it was somebody else who was doing stand, and she saw me over a year and a half ago when I was doing some stand-up. And, you know, I guess I wasn't that bad.
You're such a certifiable nut, Donovan.
I appreciate it, David.
The blind swimmer skier who does stand-up comedy. We got 2 minutes. Talk about your inspirational speeches, because you do a lot of that now. You do a lot of motivational speaking.
I do. Actually, last week I was speaking to a group called Heroes Hockey, which was started by a Vancouver guy, Norm Flynn, about 12 years ago. And it's basically an outreach program to get kids, inner city kids, involved in hockey, but also just teaching them valuable life lessons about mentorship and leadership. Amazing program, and I had the chance to speak to their Vancouver camp last week. Really came away feeling uplifted, and I hope that these kids will go on to great things from all the work that Norm and his crew are doing. And 6 months ago, I spoke at Wells Fargo in Denver to a mortgage brokers meeting. So I run the gamut of motivational speeches, but basically encouraging people to step out, think big, overcome your challenges, and enjoy life, because really taking yourself too seriously is so overrated, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I know that in speeches you've given in recent years, you get not 1, but 2 and 3 and 5 standing O's.
Do I?
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
You didn't see it. I know. You missed it, but you heard it.
Oh my God! No,
Yeah,
that's my passion, and broadcasting is another one of my passions. I'm working right now with Whistler FM to get a control board accessible, so that people like me, blind people, can work in radio. I've loved radio all my life.
I know you.
Been a passion of mine, and insurance pays better, but heck, I can do radio as a side job. And my friend Rob Wilson has done a great job to get this new station going on up in Whistler at 101.5.
Donovan, great to see you as always. Always great to be with you.
Oh, David, thank you.
Always have fun with you.
Thank you for being there for me.
Yeah, oh, stop. Okay. Great. Beautiful. Donovan, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's it, folks. Vision. Sorry, what is it? Limitless Vision.
Limitlessvision.ca.
Limitlessvision.ca is Donovan's website. Check it out. It'll blow your mind if he hasn't already. DavidBerner.com is our site. And next week, we're going to be visited by Dr. Steve Morgan, who's an associate professor at UBC from the School of Population and Public Health. Why are we not including pharmacare in our medical system? Why do I, a senior citizen, have to pay for these 10 million drugs apparently I am supposed to take? That's the subject next week. Thanks for being with us here on Shaw Community Television Cable 4. Good night.